The first light of dawn spills softly over the rolling hills, touching the rough stone cottages and the patchwork fields that stretch endlessly beneath a pale sky. You wake to the sound of crows cawing in the distance and the faint rustle of olive trees, their leaves whispering secrets in the gentle morning breeze. Your body aches from yesterday's labor, muscles stiff and sore, but there is no time to linger in bed. The day calls, as it always does. You pull your rough woolen tunic over your head, the fabric scratchy but familiar, and strap on sandals worn thin by endless steps. Your fingers, calloused and stained by dirt, fumble briefly with the leather straps before you're ready to go. Outside, the air is cool and sharp, carrying the scents of earth and wood smoke from neighboring hearths. The village is just beginning to stir. You hear the faint clatter of pots, the soft murmur of voices preparing for the day ahead. Chickens scratch at the dust near the barn, and a dog barks once, eager to be let loose. Children's sleepy voices drift from their beds, mixed with the aroma of fresh bread baking in communal ovens. You step onto the dirt path leading toward the fields, the ground still damp with dew. Each step is familiar, worn smooth by generations before you. The olive trees stand like silent sentinels, their branches silver in the morning light. You take a deep breath of the cool air, tasting the faint bitterness of the wild herbs growing along the roadside. There is a hush, a quiet stillness before the work begins, a moment that holds possibility, if only for a few fleeting breaths. The sun, a pale orb on the horizon, promises warmth, but for now it is soft, forgiving. Your neighbors emerge from their homes, some carrying buckets of water, others loading bundles of kindling. You exchange nods and tired smiles. Words seem unnecessary when exhaustion binds everyone in shared understanding. You reach the edge of your field where the earth waits, heavy and expectant. Your plow leans against a rough stone wall, worn from seasons of use. Your hands trace its shape briefly before gripping the wooden handle, the rough grain pressing into your palms. Today, like every day, begins with this: turning the earth, coaxing life from dirt and stone. The soil feels cool and damp beneath your fingers, a reluctant partner in a fragile dance. The distant crow of a rooster signals the full arrival of dawn. You step forward and begin your work, your body moving in rhythm with the land, each furrow carved a small act of hope. The sun climbs higher, shedding its soft veil of morning light to pour down with relentless intensity. Its heat presses on your back, unyielding and unforgiving, while the fields shimmer with a haze of dust and shimmering air. Your tunic clings to your skin, damp with sweat. Your fingers, once nimble, are now stiff with toil. The soil resists beneath the plow's blade, stubborn and dry in places. A stubborn earth, demanding all your strength and patience. Around you, other peasants bend to their own labors, their figures stooped but determined. Some speak quietly, exchanging news or complaints. Others keep their silence, swallowed by the weight of the day. The scent of wild thyme and rosemary mingles with the dust, carrying faint reminders of spring rains long past. Cicadas drone in the olive trees above, their buzzing a constant companion, rising and falling in waves like the rhythm of your breath. You pause beneath the scant shade of a gnarled olive tree, its twisted trunk rough against your back. The coolness is fleeting, a whispered respite before the sun claims you again. Nearby, your children play in the dirt, chasing one another with laughter that sounds both joyous and fragile against the harshness of the world. Their energy is a balm for your spirit, a brief light in the ceaseless grind. You think of the barley and wheat growing unevenly in the fields, some patches heavy and promising, others stunted and dry. The land is capricious, its generosity never guaranteed. Time slips away in measured breaths and slow footsteps. Each hour stretches long, a test of endurance. The sweat dries on your skin and your back aches, but still you press on. As noon approaches, the sky becomes a burning dome overhead, and the earth beneath your feet seems to pulse with heat. You break for a moment, sharing stale bread and water with a neighbor, their face lined with the same exhaustion you carry. There is no room for complaint here. Your survival depends on persistence, on showing up each day to wrest sustenance from soil that offers so little freely. The sun begins its slow descent, but its warmth lingers, pressing on your shoulders like a silent overseer. You work until your fingers bleed, until the last furrow is turned and the fields are ready for seed. Your body is heavy, your spirit tired, but you have done what must be done. Tomorrow, the sun will rise again, and so will you. Whispers travel faster than the wind through the olive groves. Rumors of heavy taxes, of soldiers marching closer to your village, of crops failing in the distant hills. Each word is a weight added to the burden you carry daily. The villa steward rides past on a horse to fine for these dusty roads, his cloak bright against the dull earth. His eyes scan the fields with suspicion and calculation. You lower your gaze, clutching your worn tools tighter. News from the city filters in sporadically reports of unrest, of rebellion crushed with iron and fire, of grain shortages that make even bread scarce and bitter. The distant power struggles of emperors and generals feel impossibly removed from your own small world. Yet their consequences ripple here like storm waves on a fragile shore. Your family watches you with uncertain eyes. Your children, still too young to understand, ask questions about the future that you cannot answer. You offer smiles that do not reach your eyes, promises you cannot keep. Each night, sleep is restless. You lie awake listening to the distant howls of wolves, wondering if hunger will come before dawn, if illness will strike, if the soldiers will return demanding more than you have. The fear is a quiet shadow that clings to you through the day, sharpens your senses and dulls your hopes. But you bury it beneath work, beneath the endless routine of planting, tending, and harvesting. Because to stop is to fail. To fail is to invite disaster. And so you rise with the sun, ignoring the tremors beneath your feet, holding on to whatever fragile thread of hope remains. The future is uncertain, and every day feels like walking a narrow path between survival and ruin. The shadows grow long as the sun begins its slow descent, painting the fields in shades of amber and dust. You shoulder what remains of the day's labor, your patched plow, your weariness, your dwindling hope, and begin the quiet trudge home. The road is familiar. Every stone and rut is known to your feet as your own calluses. The olive trees wave softly in the evening breeze, their silver leaves whispering secrets you no longer try to understand. You pass your neighbors on their own weary journeys, exchanging tired nods. There is little talk in the evening. The day is spoken enough. As your small home comes into view, a flicker of warmth stirs in your chest. It's not joy exactly, but the comfort of something predictable. Smoke rises from your hearth. Children's laughter mingles with the cries of chickens and the bleating of the goat simple. Sounds of life continuing, in spite of everything. Your wife meets you at the threshold. Her hands are rough as yours, her face lined by the same sun and wind. She says little, but takes the plow from your arms. You share a look equal parts exhaustion and gratitude. In this life, words are wasted where glances suffice. Inside, the air is thick with the scent of lentil stew, modest but nourishing. The clay walls glow orange in the fading light, shadows stretching like lazy cats across the floor. You sit, cross-legged, and your children crawl into your lap, sticky with dust and laughter. They do not yet know the weight you carry. Let them stay ignorant, at least for now. The evening meal is shared in silence, broken only by the clatter of wooden bowls and the crackle of the hearth. Bread, lentils, olives, nothing more, nothing less. You eat slowly, chewing each bite with the solemnity of a ritual. Food is a blessing and a burden. It fills the belly, but reminds you of what must be done tomorrow to earn it again. Later, as night descends and the stars prick the sky with cold light, you step outside once more. The fields lie quiet, wrapped in darkness, waiting for your return at dawn. You look upward, finding little comfort in the vastness above. The gods are distant, the emperors indifferent. Your life is not written in the stars, but in the furrows of your land and the lines on your hands. Inside, your family sleeps. You sit by the hearth, poking at the dying embers, letting your thoughts wander. For a moment, you imagine another life, one of ease, perhaps, or adventure. But it drifts away like smoke. Tomorrow, the sun will rise, and you will walk the same road. You will bend your back to the same fields, because that is what you do. That is who you are. And if you, modern soul, think you could do better, wake up without complaint. Toil without rest, eat without pleasure. Ask yourself, how long could you truly last? For now, though, sleep claims you. Brief, restless, necessary. The night offers no promises, only a pause. The sun rises again, this time with the promise that is half hope, half burden. Market day. It is a day unlike the others, when the air thickens with the sense of fresh bread. Ripe fruit and distant spices, carried on the breeze like whispers of a world just beyond your grasp. You prepare yourself before dawn, gathering a small sack of gudsa, few eggs, some olives, and a cracked jar of oil you hope will bring a fair price. The road to the village market is longer than the path to your fields. Winding past olive groves and dry stone walls where wildflowers grow in defiance of the dust, others walk the road beside you, farmers carrying baskets of figs, herders leading bleating goats, and women balancing pottery atop their heads with quiet grace. No one speaks much in the morning chill. Your feet say enough in their tired, steady rhythm. The village market greets you with a chaos that almost feels alive. Merchants call out their ware, salted fish from the coast, dyed cloth from the east, tools newly forged and already costly. Children dart between carts, their laughter a bright thread weaving through the noise. The smells are thick, baking bread, roasting meat, the sharp tang of goat cheese and spilled wine. You set out your meager offerings on a rough cloth spread across the ground. There, beneath a canopy of linen stretched between wooden poles, you join the timeless dance of barter and trade. A few neighbors stop to browse. A stern-faced merchant offers less than your goods are worth, and you swallow your pride to accept. Today you manage to trade for what you need. Coarse salt to preserve your olives, a small knife to replace, the one dulled by years of use. And if luck smiles, a handful of dried dates sweet enough to bring a smile to your children's faces. But the market is also a place of sharp reminders. You see the villa steward purchasing fine wine for the master's table, the potter's son wearing sandals too costly for your coin. You tuck your head, focusing instead on your own small victories. When the sun begins its descent, the market dissolves like a mirage. Vendors pack their goods, carts creak back down dusty roads, and the voices fade until only the birds remain. You shoulder your empty sack and begin the journey home. Your pockets no heavier, but your burdens slightly eased. The road feels lonelier in the twilight, though your steps are steadier for having crossed this brief, bustling world.
As the stars begin to rise, you know that the peace of the market is fleeting. Tomorrow, it will be the fields once again.
But for tonight, your family will eat, and your heart will rest a little lighter. And yet, even in a life so bound by hardship, there are fleeting moments of joy that slip through the cracks. A child's laughter, sharp and sudden, echoing off the stone walls. The gentle hum of bees in the springtime fields, weaving gold between the blossoms. The cool touch of a stream where you wash the dust from your face, and for a moment, feel almost clean. In the early morning, when the sun rises soft and forgiving, you sometimes catch your breath and marvel at the way the dew clings to the grass, shining like the coins you will never hold. Or in the evenings, when your neighbors gather by the roadside, sharing scraps of bread and rumors, you find comfort in the ordinary sound of their voices filling the air. There are simple games, 2 stones flicked across the dirt by tiny fingers. Races run barefoot between rows of olive trees, songs half remembered and shared quietly while working. These are not grand joys, but they are yours. Stitched into the fabric of your days like small bright threads in an otherwise coarse cloth. And sometimes rarely a traveling storyteller comes to the village, spinning tales of heroes, monsters, and distant lands. You listen wide-eyed as your children, though your hands are twice as calloused and your heart twice as guarded. For a little while, you let yourself believe in a world where fate is kinder. In the spring, wildflowers bloom despite the poor soil, their bright faces turning to the sun just as you do. You gather a few for your wife, setting them beside her bread-making bowl, where they wilt quickly but sweeten the air while they last. She smiles without words, and you count that as a small victory. You find beauty in your animals, too, the steady rhythm of the goats chewing, the scratchy warmth of the chickens clucking in the dust, the faithful bark of your dog when strangers pass by. Life is quieter when you stop to listen. Still, these moments are thin protection against the weight of your labor. They do not soften your calluses or ease the ache in your shoulders. But they remind you why you rise again each day, why you bend to your work without bitterness. Because even in a life of endless toil, There are pieces of wonder waiting to be found by those patient enough to notice. And you, who live in a world of screens and noise, might overlook such fragile joys. But here, in this ancient life, they are the treasures that keep your spirit from breaking. Your days in ancient Rome are measured not just by toil, but by ritual, by small acts of faith that keep the uncertainty at bay. Before the plow bites the earth, you pause and whisper a prayer to Ceres, goddess of the harvest. It is a quiet offering, almost embarrassed in its simplicity, but it is enough to steady your hands. The gods are everywhere and nowhere. They live in the streams where your children play, in the trees that shade your fields, in the cracked stone idols that sit at the corners of your home. They are fickle, sometimes listening, sometimes silent. But you honor them anyway, because in a life of so little certainty, ritual offers a fragile thread of meaning. At dawn, your wife lights a small lamp to Vesta, guardian of the hearth, her fingers tracing the air in practiced reverence. You smell the faint scent of burnt olive oil mingling with the morning bread, and for a moment your home feels like a sanctuary, distant from the harshness beyond your threshold. The village gathers on feast days, when the fields are left untended and tables are filled with offerings. You stand beside your neighbors, faces lit by firelight, as prayers are spoken and stories retold. Children chase each other between the benches, laughter mingling with hymn and flute. Ritual fills the spaces between your labors, pouring a libation into the soil before planting. Tying charms above your door against sickness, leaving a coin at a crossroads when you feel danger nearby. They are small gestures, but they root you to the land, the seasons, and to each other. Sometimes you visit the town temple, where the marble pillars rise far above your head, a reminder of both human skill and human distance. There, among wealthier worshippers dressed in finer cloth, you place your modest offering, a handful of grain. A worn candle and hope it is enough to draw the gods' favor. But faith is not always grand or public. It lives in your wife's whispered thanks when your child recovers from a fever in your own. Silent prayer as a storm threatens your crop in the way you pause to marvel at the sunrise, even when your back aches from yesterday's toil. You do not expect miracles. Expect perhaps nothing. But still, you believe, because belief softens the hard edges of your world. And maybe you, in your modern certainty, might scoff at such things. But here, in this ancient life, faith is not a luxury, it is a survival. Even in hardship, no one lives alone. Your days are entwined with those of your neighbors, your struggles mirrored in the faces of others who till the same reluctant earth. Community is not a choice but a necessity, a fragile web that catches you when you fall. In the early light, you work beside your neighbors, exchanging quiet words and tired smiles. When a storm flattens your neighbor's wheat, you help rebuild his fence. When your goat falls ill, he leaves a sack of barley at your door. Debt and favor weave between you like invisible threads pulling you closer. The women gather by the well, their voices mingling with the splash of water and the cries of children. Here, they share more than chores. They share worries of a poor harvest, hopes for their daughters' futures, and warnings of distant tax collectors. This circle of care is its own kind of power, one built from shared burdens rather than coins. In the evenings, when the work is done and the sun has slipped away, you gather at the crossroads. Someone brings a lyre, another a jug of wine. The songs are simple, their melodies old as the hills. You sing not to forget your troubles, but to remind yourselves that you are still here, still breathing, still bound together by something more enduring than hardship. And when illness strikes, as it always does, you do not face it alone. Neighbors come with herbs and prayers, with crude remedies and quiet companionship. They sit by the bedside through the long, restless nights, keeping watch when you cannot keep your own eyes open. Celebrations, too, light the darkness of your days. Weddings are noisy, joyous affairs, where tables overflow with lentils and wine, and where even the poorest offer what they can: a loaf of bread, a jug of oil, a blessing for the newly joined. During Saturnalia, laughter fills the air as roles are reversed, and for one brief moment, even peasants feel the stirrings of joy. Community offers no escape from suffering, but it shares the weight of it, and that, sometimes, is enough. If you, modern soul, live apart from your neighbors, protected by locks and distance, You may find this closeness strange, but in this world, isolation is not safety, it is peril. Here, your survival depends not only on your own two hands, but on the countless other hands that reach for yours when you stumble. Life as a Roman peasant is never far from peril. The land may be generous some years, cruel others, but the dangers you cannot control are what haunt your days most. Illness arrives quietly, like a thief in the night. A fever, a cough, a twisted ankle from a careless step, what may seem minor to others can turn deadly. When medicine is scarce and the healer's herbs are few, you tend your family as best you can using knowledge passed down from your mother's mother, but you know the limits of your craft. War is a shadow looming beyond the horizon. Soldiers march through your lands, their armor clinking like distant thunder. Men are conscripted, families torn apart, fields trampled underfoot. Sometimes the conflict comes close, forcing you to hide in cellars or flee with what little you can carry. Natural disasters, too, remind you of your vulnerability. Floods that drown your crops, droughts that parch the soil, wildfires that threaten your homes. Each event chips away at the fragile security you cling to, but danger isn't always grand or sudden. It lives in the small moments, too. The day your plow breaks and you cannot afford to fix it. The day a tax collector arrives, demanding more than you can give. The day your body aches in a way that does not fade, and you wonder if tomorrow you'll still rise to work. And yet, against all these shadows you endure, not because you are fearless, but because you cannot afford to stop. You keep going, each day stitched to the next by a stubborn kind of hope. In this world, every day is a negotiation with uncertainty. Your survival depends not only on strength and skill, but also on resilience and a quiet defiance of the hardships that seek to undo you. As the sun sets on another day, you sit by the flickering hearth, the faces of your family glowing softly in the firelight. Your hands are cracked, your body weary, but your spirit endures quietly, stubbornly, like the land itself. To live as a peasant in ancient Rome is to know hardship as a constant companion. To carry burdens unseen by those who reap the rewards of your labor. It is a life shaped by the earth, the seasons, and the whims of rulers far removed from your world. Yet within this struggle is something profound. A fierce resilience, connection to the land and to those who share your fate, and a quiet dignity in survival against all odds. Your day ends not with comfort, but with a brief, fragile peace. You listen to the night sounds, the distant bark of a dog, the rustle of leaves, the soft breathing of your sleeping children. These are your riches. This is your legacy. You may never hold wealth or power, but you hold something else, the enduring pulse of life itself, grounded in the soil beneath your feet and the simple hope of another sunrise. And so, if you, in your modern comforts, think you could survive this life, remember this. Survival here is not about strength alone, but about enduring every small hardship with a heart that refuses to break. You would wake before dawn, break your back beneath the sun, eat the simplest of meals, and still face the unknown with quiet courage. Welcome to the life of a Roman peasant. Welcome to survival.